Next, I'd like to introduce you to John Critelli, Managing Director of Protiviti's Capital Projects and Contracts Practice, along with his Associate Director, Sarah Tuchler. Their team helps their clients realize the maximum potential of their capital programs and projects. John and Sarah's team most recently has been helping their clients start the recovery process caused by the global pandemic by understanding different approaches to mitigate costs and scheduling impacts. This is why I've asked them both to join us today to talk about our business challenge number 3, capital projects management. John and Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Thanks, Charlie.
Awesome. So we started the session talking about the importance of structuring data, being proactive with that data, making it an actionable state, and then building crisis strategies around it. And what I'd like to talk to you both more specifically about is what are corporations doing to, start that recovery process, specifically related to how corporations are managing their most important capital or initiatives within the organization through programs or the capital usage. So I'd like to start just asking with, why have capital management projects become so difficult for companies in this current environment?
Yeah, and it's a great question to start out, Charlie. I think one of the biggest things in play here is, we've had a really strong economy for the last 8 to 10 years. And because of that, there's been excess capital to spend. And on the owner side, they've become less stringent on managing expenditures. They've developed relationships with contractors. Price has not been as big of a challenge as it has in the past. And because of that, there's a lot of, not necessarily handshake agreements, but contracts really aren't that well understood. And there's certain risks that are still present in capital projects that, really start to occur when there's economic downturns or a situation like COVID-19.
You can't discount the technology aspect of it either. Technology is moving forward so quickly now, kind of across the board, but construction's been classically behind the curve. And so, there's going to be a lot more difficulty to quickly aggregate and analyze data and really understand what's going on. Even if you do have a good handle on your contracts, the kind of bread and butter of the construction industry is a lot of these mom and pop shops who become your subcontractors, and they're just not investing in the technology. It doesn't make financial sense to them. So it kind of comes from the ground up. And so when you're an owner at the top, it's really hard to force your general contractor or your construction manager to have one of their subs invest in this technology for a one-off.
So in particular that then, kind of knowing that current state, what are some approaches people are taking that you've seen work with your clients?
The most important thing most clients can do and owners can do these days is kind of finding the balance between being nimble and being patient amid COVID-19, and making sure that, while you obviously want to keep your employees safe and make sure that everyone's health is at the forefront, also being patient at the same time and kind of waiting it out and not making any drastic changes to your capital program before we kind of know what's going to happen, and kind of finding a good way to strike that balance.
Yeah, and I would add too, our most successful clients that we've been working with are ones that have put a roadmap in place related to their capital programs and projects. And, that roadmap really starts with understanding the risks that are in their portfolio, how they can work with their contractors, subcontractors, and vendors to mitigate those risks. And, quite frankly, the companies that have established the best relationships with their contractors and vendors are the ones that are faring better right now in this environment, because they have that open communication. And like Sarah said, they're able to be a little bit more nimble because they have a great working relationship with the key parties in their projects.
That's super interesting. And I've heard of a product roadmap as a tech guy, but can you expand upon this recovery roadmap a little bit? And in particular, how you help them stick to it or why it's so important for them?
Yeah. And, I would say in the COVID-19 era right now, the recovery roadmap doesn't look any different than, a typical risk mitigation roadmap that you'd see or that you should see in capital portfolios. It starts with understanding your projects and your programs, what's strategic, what's key, what can be placed on hold, and how are you assessing capital. And then also from there, as you start to understand that, what contracts within your portfolio allow you to capitalize or mitigate on risks and opportunities. As you think about that, certain contract clauses may be in place with other projects versus, a different part of your portfolio. And because of that, it's really important to understand and develop a risk profile for not just your portfolio, but each of your individual projects, lay that plan out, execute against that plan, and really communicate where you are on that roadmap. Stay the course, right? It's easy changing news every day to pivot in another direction or to walk back previous plans that you've had. But, again, thinking back to our successful clients through this, they had their plan, they had their roadmap, and they've really stuck to it. And it starts with the contract and ends with good communication and risk management.
No, so like just even like one step further, right? Like, I'm thinking about this, but now I'm like, oh my God, where do I begin? I'm short-staffed. Everything needs my attention. Like, what would you give like advice to the corporations that are feeling those pressures? Like, I know I got to do something, but I don't even know where to begin or have the right resources. Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think, the best place to start is understand your risks, focus on risks, and use a risk-based approach to assessing your portfolio. In order to do that, you have to understand your projects, where they are in the project lifecycle, and what your contracts say and what your contracts allow for. But if you really take a step back and focus from a risk perspective, I think that's really the best place to start and start planning and addressing those risks one by one. And, again, stay the course, right? Create your plan, execute your plan, and you'll see the results at the end of this.
Yeah, and I'd say to that point, doing that on a portfolio level, and then once you're in a specific project, doing it at the project level as well, identifying the risks, how have the risks maybe changed or morphed from what you've typically seen in the past. And then again, to John's point, just making your plan and taking it one step at a time, and it will all come out of it.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so glad you could join us today. I really appreciate it and looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
See you
Charlie.
guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to check out the link below to get started with our capital project management use case demo package that Robert Half and Protiviti helped us create. A special thanks to John and Sarah for joining us today. We'll see you in the next one.